Even if cars themselves, by their very numbers, didn't choke up the city, our own road system does a pretty good job by itself. Traffic congestion is by no means confined to the capital city. Here in Cork, it's just 4 o'clock and already the city streets are being choked by traffic. This morning I met a couple of Dubliners who'd spent the week here. They're seasoned city drivers, yet they were appalled by the congestion.
That's a young Pat Kenny back in 1980 talking about traffic chaos. By 1986, there were 400,000 cars commuting to work in Ireland every day. Now there are over 1 million. In the intervening years, we built roads to ease congestion. Lots and lots of roads. The result of all of that, extra space for cars, gridlock.
The recently upgraded M7 on the way into Dublin is a perfect illustration of Ireland's over-dependence on the car as our primary means of transport. One survey ranked Dublin as the second most congested city in Europe, with commuters there spending an average of 246 hours, or 6 whole working weeks a year, just sitting in traffic. And it's the same problem all over the country, with house prices and housing shortages forcing people to live further from our cities and towns. It's hardly surprising that the transport sector is Ireland's fastest growing source of carbon emissions. Most people who have driven in Galway will tell you just how bad the rush hour traffic is in the city. And I'm here to meet Emer Spain, a student in NUIG, as she prepares for her daily commute by car, their preferred option.
And I hope we're not holding you up now, you're not going to be late for school.
Like so many people in Ireland, Emer's commute starts with a school run. And even though she has only a 5-kilometre journey, because of traffic, the bus can take over an hour each way.
Would you cycle to school at all?
We've tried it a few times and it's just not safe. We've had cars pass us too close. I've had, at one time, Shifa put her hand out and touched the side of a car.
You can cycle, Shifa, can you? Good.
When you have a small person cycling, it becomes very difficult.
Have you ever tried to cycle to school with your mum?
It's very hard to because my training will slow me down a bit.
Right.
Now we'll get you into your seat.
Great. That's great. Do you like Galway, Emer?
I do, I love Galway. I've been here for over 10 years now and there's no signs of me going anywhere else just yet. There's always something going on, so it's a great place to be.
Except for one thing?
Except for the traffic.
Traffic. And the rain.
And the rain as well,
The traffic and the rain. Is it getting worse every year?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I notice a difference year on year now. It definitely gets worse. And it takes up so much of your day. Like, I'd rather be doing literally anything else other than sitting in traffic.
Stuck in a car, yeah, absolutely. And of course, you're contributing to the problem too, but you have no choice.
Yeah, I don't want to be in the car, to be honest. If the bus was able to get me in or out on time, I'd take the bus. We had Shifa.
Okay, Shifa, where's your school?
Emer's first stop is Shifa's school in the centre of the city. She parks in Wood Quay and is yet another symptom of the problem we have with cars in Ireland. So many towns and city councils depend on parking fees as a source of income. Space that would be far better used by pedestrians, cyclists, or public transport.
Wouldn't this be a lovely space if there's no cars?
It really would. There's loads of little businesses around here and I think there's been talk about maybe pedestrianising the area, but
right. Well,
it'd be really lovely.
Just imagine just no cars and a market space, a place for people to meet and socialise.
Yeah.
You know, public realm space for Galway.
Exactly, yeah, just a place where people can just sit out and enjoy the sunshine when we get it.
If there were no cars.
If there were no cars, yeah.
As Emer finishes her commute, I'm off to meet Dave Hickey, the president of Galway Chamber of Commerce. He believes that Galway's reputation as a place to do business is being damaged by its reputation as a congested city.
it will actually start to impact on our ability to grow and to sustain the businesses that we've got and to sustain the economy that we've got. We know, for example, some of our larger companies are having second thoughts about putting new product into Galway.
And are you telling me that transport and accessibility is the problem?
Galway is a very narrow city. It's squeezed between Galway Bay and the lake. And as a result, the economic development has spread out away from the city centre, as has housing, but not necessarily in the same places. So people are crisscrossing the city to get to work, to get to home, etc. And as we have a housing crisis, people are moving further and further out of the city because they can't afford house prices in the city, and that's adding further to traffic congestion.
Right. And if you take up Galway City, you know, it's a small city.
Yes.
But there's a big hinterland out there.
Correct, yeah.
How far are people travelling into Galway?
Our biggest area of employment is on the east side of the city, Parkmore, Ballybrit area. There are 13,500 people working there. 25% of the people who travel to that area travel from within a 4-kilometre radius. So one of the key objectives of the transportation strategy is to get as many of those people as possible out of their cars and into sustainable transport.
Are they aware that major things need to happen to change our transport?
You only have to sit in the traffic here for half an hour and go nowhere to realise something needs to be done. And anybody who is stuck in Parkmore trying to get out of the Parkmore area or stuck trying to get across one of our very congested 4 bridges will say, yes, something needs to be done. We have chronic traffic congestion in Galway. We've suffered from it for years, and we need to address that as a matter of urgency. It's not just an economic issue, it's a social issue as well, because it is impacting on people's lives.
There are almost 3 times more people walking than cycling every day in Galway, and it's easy to see why. Navigating through the rush hour traffic on a bike is treacherous. The car rules here. And even though future plans include public transport, cycling and pedestrian routes, the key project is a ring road linking the west and east sides of the city. That project has an estimated price tag of €600 million. I wonder what former Mayor Neil O'Brolacone thinks of the plans.
You know, I could accept that possibly it might be part of a solution, just as the M50 was part of a solution in Dublin for the Dublin Transport Initiative. I mean, you've seen what's happened to the M50. It's regularly clogged on a daily basis.
The M50 is a major part of the problem in Dublin.
There is actually a motorway now between Galway and Tuam, but interestingly, the traffic on the old Tuam road seems to have actually increased since they put in that motorway, so it's absolutely bizarre.
Are you telling me that those new roads they built from places like Tuam into Galway, instead of doing the rail, which should have been done in my view, have now created bigger problems?
The difficulty is they're encouraging more and more people to actually use that route. So at rush hour, what happens is the traffic gets very congested coming in from the motorway. So what people are doing is many of them are going back to the old road. But there's an increased level of traffic all the time because more and more people are living outside the city because of the increased house prices. And unfortunately, at official levels, there seems to be a one-trick pony idea, which is this idea of the ring road or the bypass. And they seem to be ignoring the ideas that were put forward in Dublin, such as the Transport Initiative for an integrated transport system, including public transport, cycling, walking, etc.
Yeah. What's the implications of this, Neil?
Well, the implication is that Galway will cease to be seen as an attractive place to work and live in and to do business in. And I mean, the figures bear this out. I mean, Galway is officially one of the worst congested cities in Europe, which is very, very embarrassing, really.
The National Transport Authority has just announced a new public transport plan for Galway. A €200 million network of high-performing bus routes and cycling greenways, linking nearby towns and villages. This is all part of a new national transport strategy. Back in the centre of Dublin, I'm meeting with transport expert David O'Connor.
So is the problem in Ireland that we're so car dependent, is it? Is that the issue?
We have a very high level of what you might call car dependency. A lot of people say when you're talking about, you know, public transport and sustainable transport, oh, they're anti-car. It's not about being anti-car. The problem isn't the problem is car dependency. It's simply not a very efficient way of getting around, especially when you're dealing with towns and cities, and it's also a big problem in terms of climate and emissions. Once people are provided with an alternative, the evidence is they're happy to take it, but it has to work, it has to be well planned, and it has to be effective.
So would you be hopeful about transport in Ireland?
In some ways, yes. I think there are some good things, such as Dublin bikes, the investment in greenways, investment in bus connects. But at the same time, you have to ask where most people are going to live, and it's going to be in the outlying towns around our cities, especially in the eastern region, for example, but also outside Cork, Limerick and Galway. And the solution seems to be to add more roads. A lot of our commuting distances are just colossal by European standards. So there's an issue with our settlement patterns and the fact that people are being forced to buy houses further and further away from where they work.
The big plan for radical change to the transport infrastructure in the cities of Dublin, Cork, Galway, Limerick and Waterford is Bus Connects. It proposes billions of euro of investment in new quality bus corridors, more buses, integrated ticketing and orbital routes, all designed to increase reliability and to reduce bus journey times by up to 50% on many routes. This is all part of an ambitious plan to overhaul the transport network of our cities, and demand is growing fast. Last year alone, public transport use in Ireland was up 9%, the largest growth ever recorded by the National Transport Authority.
I think there's a real hunger for people to live in cities and towns and places that aren't traffic choked, that aren't unhealthy, that don't have air quality issues, and that means restricting access to car, and it means promoting walking, cycling and public transport. The cities that have worked, they've put in big traffic management policies, so they've maybe ring-fenced the city and said we're going to limit the amount of access that cars have into the city. So very, very limited access for car. But the public transport works really, really well. And the evidence is that this can happen. Generally, this is something you want to do bit by bit, incrementally. But Dublin's got a real problem, so it needs to start working on this very, very quickly.
Construction of the Bus Connects network is scheduled to start in 2021. But reducing car access within cities still faces stiff objections from many vested interests. Does this opposition have the potential to derail these plans altogether?